V-Rally 3 is an arcade-style racing game and is the third entry in the iconic V-Rally series that was developed by Eden Studios and published by Infogrames for the PlayStation 2 in 2002. And the game would also receive releases on the Nintendo Game Boy Advance, the Xbox, Nintendo GameCube and the Windows PC in the same year. And this game would follow on from the popularity seen in the previous two games in the series that found a home on the original PlayStation, that gave access to many different cars, tracks and unique features that also utilised many elements and graphical features and using the full elements of the PlayStation's hardware to its greatest effect. This was an early rally title also seen on the console as well. So the game comprised of allowing you to play among 24 different tracks across a variety of different regions with 20 official vehicles from the Rally Championship of that time that comprised of different entries from a junior series and even more advanced entries with the likes of the iconic Mitsubishi Lancer, Evolution 7, the Subaru Impreza WRC and the Toyota Corolla WRC, among many other cars from other well-known brands. Before its time, graphically this was considered to be a very impressive game in its own right for an early PS2 rally game, and the game did receive generally favourable reviews from magazines, but at the same time the game did receive some criticism due to the oversensitivity of the controls, leaving it to be quite difficult for people to pick up and play. But if you've ever played especially the first V-Rally game on the PS1, you will be remembered of that, because don't get me wrong, V-Rally 1 is an iconic game in its own right, but it's not the easiest game to pick up and play when you first play it. I remember even going back to my own experience with the game. Now I absolutely love V-Rally, but again, when I first played it, if I'll be honest, when I first played it in general, I didn't like how it controlled or how it felt. It took a while to get used to it, but I have to say, when I did allow myself to sit down with it, for me it was hands down one of the best racing games I've ever played on the PlayStation. Right, it doesn't have realistic handling when you compare it to the likes of Colin McRae Rally and other iconic rally games seen on the PlayStation 1, but it definitely had enough mass appeal, and the fact is it was an arcade focused racer, it definitely felt reminiscent of that, and it was a really good game outright. And V-Rally 2 improved on that even more so. It had even better handling, way more selection of cars, an insane amount of tracks, a track editor, but it just had really good high-res visuals, and it was considered among many to be one of the best looking racing games on the PlayStation 1 at that time. So V-Rally 3 had pretty much a lot to live up to in all respects, and it did do that quite well, but again it did suffer with its own flaws, because with games moving forward into the next generation, the standards of which games were being developed and what people anticipated were far higher than what had been seen previously on older consoles. So for games to really be successful, you had to step your game up, if you will, literally, to get the most out of it. And this game is a really good game in its own right, and from my own experience having sat down and played it, it is a very good game. It's a good solid racer. Again, the controls can be a little bit on the twitchy side, and they can be at times completely overly sensitive to a point that you will spin out. But again, it came at a time during the early days of the PlayStation 2 when games were using the analog sticks to control the cars, and if I'll be honest, a lot of racing games, actually most racing games on the PS2, still had never really managed to master the effectiveness of the analog controls, so it always left control systems to feel either vague or to be overly sensitive, and it was very hard for many games to find somewhat of a sustainable balance in between, and this game suffered from that also, unfortunately. But it still is a very good game in its own right, and it's a good worthwhile entry into the V-Rally series. And while it does offer up something new and was very reflective of its time and was considered to be probably the best and most visually impressive rally game of its time before the days of the Colin McRae games when it started to appear on the PS2, it definitely offered something in numbers for your typical rally fans and even arcade style fans. But now, for my own opinion, what I consider it to be the best game in the series, well, it's definitely a step up, especially when you compare it to the PS1 era of games. It's like visually it's superior, which quite naturally it's going to be, because the PlayStation 2 is a much more powerful console. But do I think it's a better all-round game in general to play? If I'll be brutally honest, I do enjoy this game and I really like it for what it is. I think it is a fantastic game, and it's quite rightly so, because it does have a big fan base. But I genuinely personally think that the original two games in the series are a better entry point into the series in general. More primarily the second one, because the second one is the more balanced and probably the more focused of the three games, and it's probably the easier of the three to get into in all respects to it. The first one is tough to get into, but when you do get into it, it's a fantastic experience for an earlier game. But the same can be said with V-Rally 3. It just takes a while to get used to the controls, but if you can overcome those hurdles, you will have a good solid experience in the game. But ideally, if you want to really get a feel for the game, go back and play the original games on the original PlayStation. Play through the original 2 games for a while, and then play the third one and compare the 3 and see which one you think for yourself. Now, they are all different. That's the funny thing. They're all different games in their own right, but they're all unique and they're all quirky and they are all pretty cool in all respects. So I do recommend, if you're looking for a unique arcade style rally game on the PS2, especially an early style game, V-Rally 3 is one game that I really think that you should check out. It does have some nice visuals for its time, and it does have a really cool selection of cars that really look awesome. So it is one to try out for sure. And I would love to know your thoughts on V-Rally 3 for the PS2, if you have played it yourself, and what do you think of the game overall in general. Do you enjoy these type of games, or do you find the quirky elements and the controls to be a bit too off-putting or too sensitive for your liking? I'd love to hear whatever stories you do have of this game, so be sure to share it down in the comments below. And if you have enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel and hit that bell to be updated of future videos. And if you would like to see more content on the channel around other types of rally games also released on the PS2, you can check out the playlist here on screen to see more of those games in action. And I will see you all in the next one.